Mason Hale never planned to stand inside a massive alien hall with thousands of eyes staring at him. He never planned to leave Earth either. He had only wanted to fix machines, drink cheap coffee, and live a quiet life. But fate, and a small misunderstanding involving a misrouted application, had placed him on a science exchange program that launched him straight into the center of a very noisy galaxy. The sector assembly hall was shaped like a giant glowing flower, petals of crystal curving high above. The air shimmered with soft bioluminescent lights that floated like tiny jellyfish. Delegates from 100 species stood in rows, their uniforms shining in colors Mason had never seen on Earth. Some blinked with several eyelids, some breathed through frills. One looked almost like a floating balloon with eyes. And they all looked at him. Mason swallowed hard. He had never been afraid of machines. But crowds, alien crowds, that was different. Near him stood Velari, an alien girl with gleaming turquoise skin marked with silver patterns that shifted gently like moving water. She was young for her role, but fully adult in her species, chosen as the youngest genetic steward candidate in the sector. Her job was to study endangered worlds, protect species, and lead genetic restoration programs. It was a huge responsibility, and she carried it with calm grace. Today was the Unity Prize ceremony, an event Mason did not even understand when they invited him. The only thing he knew was that his name was printed on a small card, and someone had told him to stand still and try to look honored. The booming voice of the assembly speaker echoed through the hall. "We gather to celebrate the rise of a new generation of genetic stewards," the speaker announced. "And today we honor candidate Velari of the Ethra line, who has achieved the highest evaluation score in the sector." The crowd erupted in gentle, chiming applause. Ethrans clapped by, tapping their crystal bracelets together. Velari stepped forward, calm and graceful. Her silver patterns glowed brighter. Mason admired her confidence. If he were in her place, he would have fainted by now. "And," the speaker continued, "in recognition of her remarkable achievements, candidate Velari shall receive the traditional honor, a partner from beyond her own species, a symbol of unity and collaboration." Mason blinked. Partner? Why did that sound like trouble? The speaker's glowing eyes swept across the crowd and landed directly on him. "This cycle's chosen partner," the speaker declared, "is Mason Hale of the human race." Silence. A stunned, perfect silence. Even the floating jellyfish lights seemed to freeze. Then the crowd burst into surprised murmurs. Chimes, clicks, hums, and strange musical tones that Mason couldn't even name. Mason's stomach dropped. "Wait, me? I'm the prize?" he whispered to no one in particular. Velari turned toward him, her expression soft and slightly apologetic. She raised one elegant hand in greeting. "Welcome, Mason Hale. I am honored." He was definitely going to faint, but he didn't. Instead, he forced his feet to move. The walk toward the center of the hall felt like walking through heavy liquid. Everyone watched. Everyone whispered. Some looked confused, a few looked annoyed, and one very tall insectoid alien looked like Mason had just stolen its lunch. When he reached Velari, she bowed. Her silver markings shimmered warmly. "You do not need to be afraid," she said gently. Her voice sounded musical, like soft bells. "This honor does not bind you to anything against your will. It only marks you as a representative of your people." "So, I'm not a prize?" Mason asked quietly. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "No. The translation system uses dramatic wording for old traditions. You are a partner, a collaborator. Humans show strong adaptability and creative thinking. The Assembly believes you may assist my research." "Oh," Mason said. "That's actually nicer than I expected." Velari smiled. "And far less frightening, I hope." He let out a shaky laugh. "A little." The speaker raised a long, shimmering hand. "Let the ceremony continue." Mason and Villari stood side by side as a decorative vine, grown from living crystal, wrapped gently around their wrists. It was a symbolic gesture, a sign of cooperation. Mason wasn't sure, but he thought someone in the back took at least 20 pictures of him. A deep hum filled the room as a massive crystal behind them lit up. The color rippled across the hall like a wave of blue fire. "This partnership marks a new chapter in interspecies unity," the speaker announced. "May the collaboration between the Ethra line and the human race bring restoration to the dying worlds." The hall filled with soft applause again. Through it all, Mason tried to breathe normally. He had come here thinking he would fix machines. Somehow he had been turned into a symbol of peace. That wasn't in his contract. After the ceremony, Mason and Villari walked through a quiet corridor lined with floating plants whose petals glowed gently in the dim light. Mason's heartbeat had finally slowed to a level that did not feel fatal. "I want to apologize," Villari said suddenly. "Why?" Mason asked. "For the confusion. I nominated you because your observation skills impressed me. You fixed the Assembly's translation core in half the time our technicians predicted. And you asked questions none of us expected." She tilted her head slightly. "Your mind is flexible, curious. That is rare." Mason rubbed the back of his neck. "I didn't know fixing one weird machine would do all this. It was not just one machine. You saw patterns in our systems that even our best engineers missed. And you did it with very limited tools." She paused, tapping her bracelet thoughtfully. "You solved problems in a human way. Fast, messy, direct. It reminded me of legends about your species." Mason blinked. "Legends? About humans?" "Yes," she said. "Some worlds in the sector speak of humans as unpredictable innovators, species that leap before they look yet somehow land safely, species that refuse to accept impossible situations." "Is that good?" Mason asked. "For my work? Yes. Very good." They reached a balcony overlooking the city. Towers made of living crystal rose high into the sky, glowing softly with internal light. Bridges of woven metal stretched between them like silver vines. Alien ships drifted through the air, leaving trails of color behind them. Mason leaned on the railing, staring at the view. "I never imagined I'd be part of something like this." Villari joined him. "I did not imagine the Assembly would choose you so suddenly," she admitted. "But I am pleased. I think we will work well together." Mason nodded slowly. "I'll try not to mess anything up." Villari laughed, a sound like wind through chimes. "Mason Hale, if humans truly do what legends say, then you will not only avoid mistakes, you may help save worlds." Mason wasn't sure about saving worlds. He wasn't even sure he could save a cup of coffee without spilling it, but Villari's confidence warmed him. "Can I ask something?" he said. "Of course." "What exactly does a genetic steward do?" Villari turned to face him, her silver markings glowing faintly. "I study damaged ecosystems. I search for ways to restore balance, sometimes by repairing genetic lines, sometimes by healing entire environments. My goal is to protect life." "That sounds like a huge responsibility." "It is." Her voice softened. "But I believe I can do it. With help." "With mine, apparently," Mason said with a small smile. "Yes." She looked at him with bright, calm eyes. "With yours." They stood quietly for a moment, watching ships drift through the night sky. Suddenly, a soft rumble shook the balcony. Villari frowned. That was not normal. A low, distant alarm echoed through the city. Mason straightened. What was that?" Before Villari could answer, a shimmering drone zipped past them, flashing warning colors. A message displayed in the air. Unscheduled energy surge detected possible system failure in genetic archives. Velari's expression tightened. We must go. Now. Mason nodded, adrenaline flooding through him. He had wanted a quiet life. Instead, he had been chosen as a partner to an alien scientist, and now something important was breaking. Humans were good at fixing things. Maybe the galaxy was about to find that out. And Mason Hale, whether ready or not, was becoming part of something much bigger. The alarm message glowed in the air for several seconds before fading away, but the worry it created stayed sharp in Velari's eyes. Mason had only known her for a few hours, yet he could already tell when she was genuinely concerned. Her silver markings, usually soft and flowing, had become sharp and bright, like lightning trapped under her skin. Is this bad? Mason asked carefully. Yes, Velari answered without hesitation. Very bad. The genetic archives must never malfunction. They hold records of thousands of species. If something is wrong, it could threaten entire worlds. Mason swallowed. So when do we fix it? Velari looked at him, almost surprised, then smiled in a calm, grateful way. Now. She tapped her bracelet, and a transparent map appeared in front of them. It showed a huge tower shaped like a twisting strand of DNA. The building pulsed with a dim blue glow, but one section blinked angry red. That is where the surge occurred, she said. We must go quickly. Mason nodded. Lead the way. They hurried through the glowing bridge that connected the balcony to a central lift pod. The lift moved smoothly, almost silently, sliding between crystal towers like a beam of living light. Mason gripped the handrail anyway. He preferred machines that made noise, machines that warned you they were working. The lift stopped near the base of the archive tower. The entrance stood open, and dozens of Ethran workers were already rushing inside. Their bracelets sparkled with frantic color signals. Velari walked with purpose. Even though she was the youngest candidate, people moved aside for her. Some nodded respectfully, others whispered her name. Mason followed closely, trying not to trip on the smooth floor that curved under his feet. So what exactly are we expecting? He asked. A power instability, she said, or a broken regulator, or perhaps a miscalibrated... A loud crackle interrupted her. Lights flickered above them. Or something worse, Velari finished softly. They reached the central chamber. Mason froze. The room was enormous, like a hollow sphere of swirling lights. Dozens of glowing data ribbons spiraled around them, each one containing genetic information from different worlds. They moved like slow rivers of color, weaving in and out of the floating consoles. The whole place looked like a peaceful storm of knowledge, except one ribbon. One was breaking. A jagged tear in a glowing orange data stream spit sparks of light, and a low hum vibrated through the air. Another surge flickered along the walls. Mason stepped back. That doesn't look friendly. It is not dangerous physically, Velari assured him, but the information inside could become corrupted. If we lose it, we lose centuries of research. Mason took a deep breath. Okay. Tell me what to do. Velari moved to a console and activated several holograms. This archive stores the genetic lines of the Kasari Plains, she explained. A world struggling with rapid collapse. If this data is lost, we cannot design the restoration plan. So saving this archive saves a planet, Mason said slowly. Yes. Right, Mason muttered. No pressure. Velari looked at him with calm confidence. You solved the translation core. You can solve this. Mason walked around the damaged ribbon, studying the sparks. What caused the tear? Unknown, Velari said. It began 3 minutes before the alarm. Can I touch it? You may, she answered, but gently. Mason placed his hand near the glowing tear, and to his surprise, the ribbon responded with a soft pulse. It felt warm, almost alive. He leaned closer. I think the regulator feeding this ribbon is misaligned. Velari blinked. How can you tell? It's humming wrong, Mason said simply. Humming? She repeated, puzzled. Yeah, machines hum in certain ways when they're healthy. Or unhealthy. This one sounds like it's struggling to breathe. Velari's eyes widened slightly. Humans view technology emotionally? Not emotionally, Mason said, shrugging. We just listen. Velari smiled softly. Interesting. Mason knelt beside the regulator panel. It was sleek and glowing, with symbols that changed constantly. Even the tools in this place were alive with movement. Mason popped open a small access hatch. Inside, dozens of crystal nodes pulsed like tiny stars. There's the problem, he murmured. What is it? Velari asked. The alignment spindle is stuck. It can't rotate to correct the power flow. Velari crouched beside him. Can you repair it? Yes, but I'll need something thin, flat, and strong. Velari removed one of her crystal bracelets. Will this help? Mason stared. Are you sure? It looks ceremonial, she said, smiling, but also strong. Use it. He used the bracelet like a lever, pushing gently against the stuck spindle. The crystal hummed in response, almost like it understood what he needed. Slowly, carefully, he nudged the spindle until it clicked back into place. The damaged ribbon stopped sparking. The tear began to close itself, glowing brighter and brighter until it fused completely. Alignment restored, Velari said softly. You did it. Mason exhaled shakily. If this is what your job is like every day, I need more coffee. A musical laugh escaped her. Not usually, but sometimes the unexpected happens. Mason stood and rubbed his hands together. So, crisis solved? Partially. Velari tapped the console. The power surge was not natural. Something triggered it. Mason frowned. Triggered? Like sabotage? Her expression darkened, not angry but troubled. Possibly. And if it was sabotage, then the assembly is in danger. Genetic stewards are in danger. And the archives, Mason added. Velari nodded. We must investigate quietly. Mason hesitated, then asked, Why quietly? Shouldn't you tell someone? If we alert the wrong person, she said, the true saboteur may escape. That made sense, though it didn't make Mason feel any better. Another worker approached them, a tall Ethran with bright green markings. Candidate Velari, the assembly requests your presence. They wished to discuss the energy surge. Velari bowed slightly. I will attend soon. The worker left. Velari turned to Mason. Come, there is something I must show you. They walked deeper into the archive tower. The air grew cooler, and the floating lights dimmed to soft blue. Finally, they reached a small chamber with a projection platform. Velari activated it. A model of a dying planet appeared, rotating slowly. Large areas of land were gray and cracked. The oceans looked thin and pale. This world, Velari said quietly, is Kasari, once full of wide grasslands and great migrating animals, now almost gone. Mason frowned. What happened? Climate instability, she said. Genetic collapse, a chain reaction that no one noticed in time. Mason stared at the broken planet. Can it be saved? Maybe. But only if we have complete data. She looked at him. Which means someone tried to destroy that chance. Mason felt a cold chill. Why would anyone do that? There are many reasons, Velari said softly. Politics, rival species, those who believe some worlds are not worth saving. Mason clenched his jaw. That's cruel. Velari's eyes softened. Yes, but that is why we work, to protect life even when others do not care. Mason admired her dedication. She was younger than most candidates, yet she carried the weight of worlds without complaining. He felt a strange spark of determination inside himself. "I'll help," he said firmly. "If someone is trying to destroy your work, then we'll stop them." Velari looked at him with gentle pride. "I believed you would say that. Humans are known for their bravery." "Bravery?" Mason snorted. "I'm just stubborn." "Stubbornness can save worlds," she said with a soft smile. Before Mason could reply, the lights in the chamber flickered again, only briefly, but enough to make Velari tense. "That was another surge," she whispered. "Smaller, but deliberate." Mason stepped closer to the consoles. "Where did it come from?" Velari tapped her bracelet, and a map appeared. A single red dot blinked far below the archive tower. Mason frowned. "The basement?" "No," Velari corrected. "The root chamber, a restricted area." "So someone is down there?" Mason asked. "Someone who should not be," she said. They exchanged a look. Quiet. Serious. The investigation had truly begun. "Velari," Mason said slowly, "what do we do now?" Velari held out her hand. "We go to the root chamber, together." Mason took a deep breath, then took her hand. Humans didn't run from problems. They fixed them, and Mason Hale was ready to prove it to the entire galaxy. Mason had never been inside a building that felt alive before, but the archive tower's lower floors definitely felt that way. The walls pulsed softly, like a slow heartbeat. The air was cooler, heavier, filled with the scent of mineral dust and strange flowers. Every step echoed in a quiet rhythm, as if the tower itself was listening. Velari walked ahead with controlled grace, her silver markings faint but alert. She kept glancing at her bracelet, watching the blinking red signal that showed the location of the second energy surge. Mason stayed close behind. His palms were sweaty, but his mind felt strangely sharp. He wasn't a soldier or a spy, but he knew how machines behaved, and the tower's systems were acting strange, almost nervous. "Does the root chamber always feel like this?" he whispered. Velari shook her head. "No, it is usually calm, peaceful. Something is disturbing the network." "Something, or someone," Mason added. Velari gave a small nod. "Yes." They reached a circular door with glowing symbols. A guard stood there, tall and calm, his crystal staff shining softly. He bowed when he saw Velari. "Candidate Velari, I was told to escort you." "It is better if no one else enters with us," Velari said softly. "The situation is delicate." The guard hesitated but trusted her judgment. "As you wish. I will remain here." Velari touched the door's center, and it opened with a gentle sigh, as if releasing held breath. Mason stepped inside with her. The root chamber. The chamber was huge and dim, shaped like a sphere with a glowing tree of light rising in the center. Dozens of thick, luminous branches extended from its trunk, connecting to the tower's systems. It looked ancient, sacred, and alive. This was the heart, the memory core that stored original genetic lines for hundreds of worlds. But something was wrong. One of the branches flickered violently, its glow sputtering like a candle in strong wind. Mason frowned. "That doesn't look good." Velari stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "That is the Kasari branch. It is still unstable after the first surge." Mason moved closer, examining the branch. "Something is draining power from it." Velari looked surprised. "You can tell?" "Yeah. It's like when a wire is connected wrong and energy leaks out." Mason touched the glowing root gently. "This isn't normal malfunction. Someone rerouted the flow." Velari's face tightened. "Then the saboteur was here." They scanned the floor. Mason spotted something small near the edge of the chamber. He crouched down and picked it up, It was a shard of silver metal, thin and bent, as if snapped off a tool. "Do Ethran tools look like this?" Mason asked. Valari examined it. "No, this metal is not ours." "So someone brought outside tech," Mason said. "Someone hiding their identity." Valari inhaled slowly, thinking. "Only high-ranking delegates can access the root chamber." "Which means the saboteur is not just anyone," Mason said. "It's someone from the assembly." Before Valari could respond, the glowing tree flickered again, this time harder, almost violently. A pulse of cold air rushed through the chamber. Valari stiffened. "It is beginning a forced shutdown." Mason's eyes widened. "Shutdown? What happens if it shuts down?" "The root chamber will protect itself by locking all data," Valari said. "But if it triggers during instability?" She paused, choosing simple words. "It will freeze the damaged branch permanently." Mason swallowed. "Meaning the Kasari data is gone forever?" "Yes." Mason looked at the flickering branch. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a genius. But he understood machines. And more importantly, he knew when something needed help. "Valari," he said, "we can stop it." She blinked. "How?" "By stabilizing the branch long enough for the system to cancel the shutdown." Mason pointed at the central trunk. "The stabilizer node is up there." Valari glanced upward. "It is high and unsafe." "I'm used to unsafe," Mason said with a shaky grin. "I fix broken machines, sometimes while standing on very questionable ladders." Valari looked unsure. "Mason, you do not have to do this." He stepped closer. "You said humans leap before they look. Maybe that's true, but if a whole planet depends on it, then yeah, I'll leap." Valari stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, her eyes softening. "I trust you." Mason tried to ignore the lump in his throat. He turned to the central trunk, found a low branch, and began climbing. Mason climbs. The glowing surface felt warm and firm under his hands. The tree hummed quietly, vibrating like a calm engine. Mason climbed slowly, focusing on each step, each hold. He tried not to look down, but his brain refused to cooperate. When he finally glanced down, Valari looked tiny, yet she watched him with complete trust. "You are doing well," she called. Mason forced a breath. "My arms disagree." He reached the stabilizer node, a glowing orb pulsing in uneven rhythm. "Okay, Valari," he called down. "Tell me what this thing is supposed to do." "It channels power evenly," she explained. "If you can adjust the flow regulator manually, the branch may stabilize." Mason opened a tiny panel on the orb. Inside, dozens of threads of light wove in and out of small geometric shapes. It looked more like magic than technology. "I think I get it," Mason said. "The threads are supposed to cross evenly, but some are tangled." Valari nodded. "Yes. Can you fix them?" Mason reached inside carefully. "I'll try." The threads responded to his touch, glowing brighter. He moved one gently aside, then another. The orb shifted color slightly, from unstable orange to softer yellow. "That's good," Valari called. "Not done yet," Mason said. As he worked, he thought of Kasari, a world he had never seen, animals he had never met, people he didn't know, but they deserved a chance, and humans helped people, even strangers. Mason separated the last tangled thread. The orb glowed bright blue. "Valari, I think—" A sudden pulse shot through the branch. The energy surged up the trunk, shaking it. Mason clung tight as the tree trembled. Valari shouted, "Hold on!" The trembling stopped after a few seconds. The entire root chamber filled with calm blue light. Valari checked her bracelet. Her eyes widened. "Mason, you did it. Shutdown canceled." Mason exhaled and rested his head against the trunk. "Good, because I'm not climbing again." Valari laughed, relieved. Please come down, slowly. Mason climbed down carefully, legs shaking. When he reached the floor, Velari stepped closer. Her markings glowed softly. You saved the branch. You saved the data. You saved Kasari. Mason rubbed his sore hands. We saved it. We're a team. Velari looked at him with quiet warmth. Yes, a strong team. The saboteur strikes again, but before they could celebrate, the chamber lights flickered again, this time accompanied by a sharp signal from Velari's bracelet. Her expression hardened. A new surge. Not here. In the upper assembly hall. Mason's stomach dropped. The saboteur moved? Yes, she said, and I fear they are no longer targeting data. What then? Mason asked. Velari looked toward the tower ceiling, eyes full of worry. They may be targeting the assembly itself. Mason felt a chill sweep through him. We have to go. Velari nodded. Quickly. They ran toward the exit. Mason's legs still trembled from climbing, but he pushed himself harder. The hallways passed in glowing blurs. The lift shot upward like a streak of light. As they reached the higher floors, Velari spoke quietly, her voice steady but troubled. Mason, the assembly is full of powerful delegates. If the saboteur acts there, it could fracture the entire sector. Then we stop them, Mason said firmly. Velari looked at him. Even if it is dangerous? Mason managed a tired smile. I thought you knew humans. We don't run from danger. Velari's markings shimmered warmly. Yes, that is why I chose you. The lift doors opened. The assembly hall stood ahead, glowing, busy, unaware of the threat moving within it. Mason stepped forward with Velari beside him. The galaxy was changing, and humans were right in the center of it. The assembly hall looked calm when Mason and Velari arrived, but only on the surface. Delegates moved around with stiff shoulders and sharp whispers. Holograms flickered above their heads. Crystal lights dimmed unevenly, like tired stars. Something was wrong. Something deep. Velari walked forward with quiet confidence, but Mason could see tension in her movements. Her silver markings glowed sharper than usual, almost defensive. Mason, she whispered, stay close. I do not know how the saboteur will act. Mason nodded. His heart thumped painfully, but he kept walking. He wasn't a hero, but running away wasn't an option, not when so much depended on them. They approached the central space of the assembly. The speaker stood on a raised platform, addressing a circle of delegates. But even from far away, Mason saw the worry in the speaker's glowing eyes. And we must remain calm, the speaker announced. Do not assume danger until we have evidence. A delegate shouted, There was an energy surge. You cannot ignore that. Yes, another added, and this is not the first one. The room filled with anxious noises, clicks, chimes, hums. Velari stepped forward. Honored delegates, I bring updates from the root chamber. Dozens of heads turned toward her. Mason felt the pressure of hundreds of eyes on him again, but he forced himself to stay steady. The speaker nodded. Candidate Velari, tell us what you found. Velari bowed slightly. The Kasari branch was tampered with. The power surge was not natural. Someone attempted to force a shutdown. Shocked gasps filled the hall. Sabotage? A delegate demanded. In the archives? Who would do such a thing? Velari raised a hand gently, calming the noise. We found evidence, a tool shard from outside Ethran design. The room grew tense and silent. Mason stepped forward. And the saboteur isn't done. All eyes turned to him. There's another surge, Mason said. Somewhere in the assembly. A ripple of fear passed through the crowd. The speaker lifted a hand. Silence! The room settled again. Velari tapped her bracelet, projecting the map she and Mason saw earlier. A blinking red dot appeared, deep in the wall structure near the energy regulators that powered the entire hall. If the saboteur interferes with those regulators, Velari explained, the assembly systems will collapse, not violently, but enough to cause panic, confusion, and data loss. Mason added, "It's the perfect place to hide damage." The speaker looked troubled. "We must investigate. Who will go?" Velari stepped forward without hesitation. "I will." Mason stepped next to her. "And I'm going with her." A murmur rose in the room. A few delegates looked doubtful. Others looked impressed. The speaker regarded Mason with curiosity. "Human engineer. This task may be dangerous. You are not obligated to join her." Mason swallowed, but he didn't step back. "With all due respect," he said, "obligation doesn't matter. If someone is trying to break this place, then I'm going to help stop them. Velari saved me. We work together." Velari's eyes softened, touched by the support. The speaker bowed slightly. "Very well. You may proceed." The investigation Velari guided Mason toward a side corridor behind the assembly hall. The lights flickered again, faint, but enough to confirm the saboteur was still nearby. "This hallway connects to the regulator nexus," Velari said, "but access is restricted. Only high-level credentials can open the door." "Can your bracelet do that?" Mason asked. "Yes, but the saboteur may also have stolen access." Mason frowned. "Then we're walking into their territory." Velari nodded. "Yes." Mason took a deep breath. "Okay, no fear. Just very careful walking." Velari gave a small laugh, easing the tension. "You humans are interesting." They reached the nexus door. It was tall, circular, and covered in glowing geometric lines. Velari pressed her bracelet to the center. The symbols brightened, then spun slowly. The door opened with a soft hum. Inside, the regulator nexus glowed with hundreds of interconnected crystal cylinders. Energy flowed between them in streams of light. The whole room looked like a web of moving stars, except one cylinder, the one with a flickering red glow. "That's it," Mason whispered. "The unstable regulator." Velari nodded. "If it is pushed further, the entire hall's systems will overload." Mason moved forward, examining the cylinder. "It's been tampered with. Someone twisted the energy flow again." Velari scanned the area. "The saboteur must be close. Be alert." The lights flickered again, stronger this time. The unstable cylinder gave a sharp pulse. Mason stepped back. "It's going to shut down the hall's energy network." Velari touched the regulator gently. "I can recalibrate it, but someone must hold the flow steady." Mason immediately stepped forward. "Tell me what to do." She blinked. "You are not afraid?" "Terrified," Mason admitted. "But that doesn't matter. We can't let the hall collapse." Velari nodded. "Place your hands here and here." She guided him to two glowing plates on the side of the cylinder. "Keep the energy lines aligned. They will shift." Mason held the plates. A warm vibration ran through his fingertips. Velari began the calibration. The cylinder emitted soft pulses of white and blue light. The flow inside shifted, smooth, then chaotic, then smooth again. Mason focused hard. He adjusted his grip as the lines moved unpredictably. Sweat formed on his forehead. "You are doing well," Velari said calmly. "Feels like wrestling a glowing snake," Mason muttered. "Keep the flow steady. Almost there." Suddenly, the red flicker brightened. A strong pulse nearly pushed Mason's hands away. "I've got it. I've got it," he said through clenched teeth. Velari worked faster. Her markings glowed intensely as she adjusted the internal regulators. Then, the cylinder glowed solid white. A calm hum filled the nexus. "It is stabilized," Velari whispered. Mason stepped back, breathing hard. "So, did we catch the saboteur?" Velari looked around. "No. Whoever did this avoided detection again. Mason frowned. But why? What's the goal? Velari answered softly. To weaken the sector, to create doubt, to make it seem like the genetic stewardship program is failing. Mason realized something. To discredit you. Velari froze. Me? You're the youngest candidate, Mason said. Some people won't like that. Someone wants to make you look unprepared. Her expression softened into something sad, but strong. That may be true. But we stopped them twice, Mason said firmly. They failed. Velari's markings shimmered gently. Thanks to you. Mason shook his head. Thanks to us. Teamwork, remember? She smiled. Yes, teamwork. Return to the assembly. When they returned to the assembly hall, the speaker and dozens of delegates waited anxiously. Velari stepped forward. The regulator has been restored. The system is stable. A wave of relief swept through the hall. The speaker turned to Mason. Human, your actions today saved the assembly. We acknowledge your bravery and skill. Mason blushed. I just fix things. That's what I do. The speaker smiled softly. Sometimes fixing things is the greatest courage of all. Velari stepped beside Mason, her voice strong and clear. I could not have done this alone. Mason Hale is a remarkable partner. I request he remain assigned to my research team for future projects. The hall murmured approvingly. Mason blinked. Wait, future projects? Velari whispered. If you wish. Only if you wish. Mason looked at her. At the glowing hall. At the delegates who now looked at him with respect rather than confusion. He thought about Earth, quiet and predictable. He thought about alien cities made of light. He thought about saving worlds. I'd like that, Mason said. Velari's markings glowed warmly. Good. Then our partnership continues. The speaker raised their hands. Let this moment remind us, unity across species is our greatest strength. Today, the newest candidate and a human visitor proved that cooperation can protect entire worlds. The hall applauded. Mason stood beside Velari, feeling something he never expected. He belonged here. After the ceremony later, on the balcony overlooking the glowing city, Mason and Velari took a quiet moment. Do you think the saboteur will try again? Mason asked. Yes, Velari said honestly. But now we are prepared. Mason nodded. Good, because humans are stubborn, very stubborn. Velari laughed softly. Then I am glad you are on my side. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the crystal towers shimmer under the twin moons. A new chapter had begun, for Mason, for Velari, for the sector, and it started with simple teamwork and a human who refused to give up.